Warehouse and Operations as a Career, I'm Marty, and I appreciate you stopping in again today. As I was sitting down to record today, I noticed we're on the 150th episode of WAOC. That's 150 weeks of doing the podcast. Checking out the calendar like I like to do, that caught my attention that we're in week 32 of 2019. We only have 20 more weeks to wrap up our goals for the year. Now, I'm pretty much on track myself. How's your stuff coming along? Now's the time to check them out. We've still got time to make things happen. If we're working from our plan, there's still plenty of time to adjust anything we need to. Speaking of working a plan, I wanted to share a listener's situation with the group. I'm certain we can come up with some suggestions that'll help her out. She's working in a smaller distribution warehouse. I think she said there was about 890 items or SKUs being carried. They have 2 receivers that helps out with the put-away process, and sometimes they run pallets off of the dock as well. She said they have 1 set-down forklift, 2 stand-up lifts, 1 reach lift, and as for pallet jacks, she said there's 2 single rider jacks and 3 doubles. Now she says they're not using any kind of attachments like clamps or slip sheets, just ordinary equipment. She didn't know the model numbers, but everything sounded like they were fairly new. She thought about 6 or 7 years old. From what she described, all the pallet jacks were in-controlled platform riders, and the set-down lift was electric. It all sounded like kind of lighter weight equipment to me. She's been working there as an assembler and utility person for about 2 years and has some inside knowledge or information that one of the receivers will be leaving in about 9 months. He'll be going back to school. So one of her goals is to be promoted to that receiving position. Her opportunity is that there is no equipment trainer at her company. The company has a third party that kind of comes out that instructs the 29 CFR 1910.178 or the powered industrial training as they need it. She's been given the class so she can get in some practice, and her boss is pretty good about either watching her or having someone take her to the back and observe her while she drives around, but no one is really sharing any advice or pointers. It sounds like she's just kind of driving forward and backwards or driving around some pallets. She doesn't feel she's getting any better at it, and she's definitely not feeling comfortable on any of them yet. She wanted to ask if we had any pointers or tricks when it came to training and learning to operate any of that type of equipment. I suggested to her maybe post something on one of our feeds on Facebook or Twitter using that little @ sign, WHSEANDOPS, or even post in the Warehouse Equipment Operators Community group on Facebook, and I bet several of our listeners would be glad to share some of their thoughts. I mean, after all, that's where all the pros are hanging out. So I thought today we'd talk a bit about a few of the training techniques that I see used out in the field and what I try to impress on the candidates that I work with. I guess it'd be best just to start from scratch. That'll include all the equipment she's mentioned earlier. First off, before anyone starts working with or even touches a piece of powered industrial equipment, they need to be trained on its operation and really authorized to be on it. I was really excited to hear that her company had an instructor that came out and taught everyone about being safe on the units and ran them through the 29 CFR 1910.178 standard. So as we would have learned from the training that we should perform a pre-trip on any equipment or machine that we're going to operate or be responsible for, right? With all her equipment being electric, we should ask someone about the charging procedures. We'll need to know the proper disconnect or unplugging and the connecting or plugging up the equipment procedures, as well as when we should charge the equipment. And not all facilities may require an actual printed form to be filled out to document our pre-trip. Some smaller organizations may just kind of report it to maintenance as needed, kind of a program like that, but I strongly suggest that we document our pre-trips, put them on paper. My thoughts are always to do one. and turn it in to someone anyway. Who knows, maybe you'll aid in setting up a new procedure and getting noticed in a positive way from your management team. I don't see that turning in a pre-trip is ever going to get you in trouble. Everyone is really trained to do it. Okay, I personally think if you have the opportunity to train on a single jack, and that's what you want to learn on. A single pallet rider jack is quick, turns kind of jerky due to the short wheelbase, and you're going to learn to move slower, react quicker, and give the pallet jack the respect that it deserves. I think that you're going to find until you get comfortable on a pallet jack, it's going to kind of wear on you. That first 20 minutes every day that you're learning is going to wear you out. When mounting the platform, the placement of our feet is going to be critical. We need to keep both feet on the platform at all times, but we should learn to reposition them as needed. They can help take stress and strain off of our rotator cuff, and we need to use our body to help make our turns, repositioning our stance to kind of be one with the jack. I myself use my dominant hand or arm to control or operate the in-control steering bar. It's very important that we have strength in our other hand and really that whole arm, though, to hold on to the unit's stationary bar at all times. You'll be surprised how much you'll use that arm in positioning your movements while running through the aisles. Never just hold on to the steering bar handle. Always use both hands when operating a rider jack. One on the stable bar and one on the steering bar. There's nothing really special about operating a rider jack. It's honestly all about being safe all the time. You have to be comfortable riding on it. Practice is what will make you comfortable, and experience is what will make you good at it. Personally, I think the best way to train is to use the ends of the aisles. I kind of preach always traveling with forks trailing. Practice coming out of the aisle, moving over to one side as you're approaching the end cap, slowing and stopping, glancing through the racks on both sides, confirming that no one is coming before honking and carefully proceeding to make your turn. It's really important to remember to arch your turn. There could always be pallets placed at the end of the aisle or even some parked equipment. Even with our single pallet jack, those turns need to be wide whenever possible. I always suggest learning with a pallet on the piece of equipment, either empty or maybe a pallet with just 20 or 30 cube on it. Sometimes a little product can make us be more careful. We don't want to damage anything, right? With a pallet on the equipment, we'll learn to gauge our turns much better. By coming into and out of aisles, we'll learn to position our bodies, reposition our feet as we lean into the handle to make those turns. It's really important to train ourselves to keep our feet on the platform at all times. Let me suggest that again. It's really important that we keep our feet on the platforms at all times. You will eventually hurt yourself if you don't. And you know that won't be an accident. Your feet weren't on the platform, in the protected area, and that is operator error, not an accident. Anyway, once we're comfortable coming in and out of the aisles, let's start running down the aisles. Now let's only run at like half speed. We're still learning. You don't need to go fast yet. Keep paying attention making our turns. You're learning a lot more by making those turns than you think. You're training all kinds of muscles and training your brain with your body movements. Focusing on entering and exiting aisles is your shortcut to learning to operate a rider jack. Once you're comfortable with it, you'll start acquiring that experience needed to go ahead and improve with. Now, when you move on up to the double and triple jacks, treat them the same way. Set up your turn before you approach the end caps. Turn wide while keeping an eye on the back of your first or second pallets. That's where your pivot point will be. The placement of the load wheels on your particular jack is going to be important, as that relates to that turning radius or pivot point. I always make a couple of turns on a jack that I'm unfamiliar with. You can't always just judge with our eyes on how they're going to turn. Again, learning to operate an electric rider jack isn't difficult. Go slow, Be safe, turn slowly, and watch out for others and anything that's on the floor. Last week, I heard a trainer that always had her students repeat her golden rule before every class. She would preach to them, don't hit nobody and don't let nobody hit you. I love that cheer. Respect the equipment, its abilities, and your ability and skill level, and you'll get that experience needed. In my opinion, the same goes for the set-down and the stand-up lifts. Be sure not to even go near them until you've been trained on them, authorized to operate them, and a trainer signs off on you. Learn about their fueling or charging, and always perform a pre-trip on your equipment. These are large pieces of machinery. They're heavy, and they can do a lot of damage if they get away from you. I always urge and encourage newbies to start out slow. Use the same training techniques as we did with the rider jacks. Start out by driving in and out of the aisles, kind of creeping at a very slow rate of speed. Once you're comfortable with turning into and out of an aisle, start driving straight down the aisle, stay in the center of the aisle. Then, after you're comfortable steering, accelerating, and braking, go find a quiet place, with no obstacles above you, and practice raising, lowering, and reaching the forks. Keep the equipment still. Just start training your brain on the controls and what they do. When you're comfortable with that, pick up a pallet. Raise it like 4 inches and practice placing it in a ground slot and picking it back up again. Now remember to watch your freight guard and don't get it caught up on the crossbars. After you're comfortable working on the ground level, move up to the second level and do the same thing. By now you may have the skills and awareness to drive up and down the aisle a bit, then pulling down a pallet of freight from the second level and just putting it back. Remember, working with a forklift requires that you're always familiar with your surroundings. Watch out for people, equipment, crossbars, uprights, in-rack sprinkler systems, wood chips, and shrink wrap on the floor. Man, there's a million things that you have to watch out for. Now, your forklift safety training will cover all of these things. Please pay attention to that class. Again, they're not difficult to learn how to operate, but they do have to be learned. They have to be respected at all times. Because when they're not respected, or we work outside of our skill level, well, things will go wrong, and they can go seriously wrong. Most of our larger facilities will have trainers and training programs, which is really fantastic. But like in her case, we'll have to be cautious and learn a little more on our own. We'll have to get our own experience. Today's thoughts may be some practical guidelines you could follow, but always, even in the smaller buildings, work and learn with your supervisor's approval and under their supervision. And even then, only after you've gone through your powered industrial truck training. If you'd like to expand on today's topic, shoot us an email to host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com or head over to social media and start a thread there. Until next week, keep learning and be safe doing it.